You know, getting a new drug to patients can take over a decade and cost billions of dollars. And look, this isn't just a business problem, it's a real public health crisis. So today, we're going to explore some of the cutting-edge strategies that are finally starting to break this bottleneck. Let's get into it.
So it all really boils down to the one question that's on every R&D leader's mind, right? How do we accelerate discovery and development without cutting any corners on safety or the actual science? It's the big one. So let's break down the answer.
Now, the solution here isn't about small tweaks. It's about a fundamental rethink of the entire process, and it's really built on three core pillars: radically streamlining operations, getting way smarter about data, and using some truly groundbreaking technology to differentiate.
So, let's start with the timeline so often just grinds to a halt. The single biggest operational bottleneck is, you guessed it, clinical trials. And the reality of trial execution is, well, it's pretty stark.
Think about this for a second. The average time just to open a clinical trial is 8.1 months. That is almost a full year of administrative work before a single patient is even seen. And if you look at oncology, the picture is even worse. For industry-sponsored cancer trials, it takes 170 days before the first patient is even screened. And you have to remember, these delays have a devastating human cost. But here it is. This might be the most shocking number of all. After all that time and all that money, the average cancer trial enrolls just 1.5 patients. 1.5. This isn't just a bottleneck. It's a systemic failure of process and patient access. So how do we fix this? Well, that brings us right to our first pillar, focusing on some deep operational streamlining to move from these incredible bottlenecks to some real breakthroughs in how we actually run trials. A huge part of the solution lies in treating research like a core business function. And a great example of this is the Henry Ford Health Initiative, which went in and completely restructured its research administration. They were facing all the common executive-level problems, right? Long delays, high staff turnover, inefficient financial processes. Their solutions were pretty direct. They secured executive financial support, and they outsourced key startup functions to specialists. And the results? They were immediate and they were dramatic. They cut their study startup time in half, a 50% decrease. And at the same time, they increased the number of open protocols by 44%. It just proves that when you treat research as a strategic priority, the results will follow. But look, operational efficiency is only half the battle. We also have to make it a whole lot easier for patients to participate in these trials. This means a big shift towards patient-centric innovation, focusing on reducing the burden of just taking part. And this is where technology becomes absolutely key to scaling these improvements. New AI models, they're called multimodal large language models, can understand and process all kinds of messy health data, everything from PDFs and handwritten notes to medical images. By automating the review of all this stuff, this AI cut the time coordinators spend on patient screening by a staggering 80%. Now, this leads us perfectly to our second pillar, ensuring we have high-quality, fit-for-purpose data. It's time to move from this state of data overload to generating the clear signals that regulators actually need. You know, we have this impulse to just collect as much data as we possibly can, but it's led to a data explosion. By 2025, the average clinical trial is expected to generate 6 million data points. But as we're learning, more data doesn't necessarily mean better data. In fact, this data overload often just creates unnecessary complexity and cost. Get this, over a third of all the data collected comes from procedures that aren't even essential to the study. And that directly translates to a 25 to 30% increase in the burden on both patients and the clinical sites. This really requires a shift in mindset. We need to move to what's called fit-for-purpose data collection. It means that every single data point you collect is directly tied to a specific regulatory outcome. It's all about eliminating any complexity that doesn't help you answer the core research question. The key to doing this is using advanced, objective biomarkers. Think of EEG-based markers for Alzheimer's. Or in oncology, amazing things like radiomics, which analyzes medical images for data, and liquid biopsies, which are just simple blood tests that can monitor cancer in real time. By fusing these different kinds of data together, we can create a much clearer picture of a disease and predict outcomes way more accurately.
And that focus on predictive accuracy brings us to our third and final pillar, using technology to truly differentiate your products through sheer speed and innovative teamwork.
And we're not talking about just incremental improvements here. This is a paradigm shift, using advanced simulations powered by quantum-informed AI, which basically leverages principles of quantum physics to compute faster. We can model molecules up to 1,000 times faster than traditional methods. 1,000 times.
But of course, these tools aren't perfect. They can have flaws, like data fabrication. And this is exactly why the solution isn't about replacement. It's about strategic integration through what we call human-AI teaming. Research actually shows that a simultaneous mode, where humans and AI review outputs together, yields much greater benefits than a sequential one.
So how do leaders put this into practice? Well, you delegate the high-volume, repetitive tasks to the AI. You keep your human experts focused on the high-risk decisions that require judgment. And by having them review the work together, you get the best of both worlds, the incredible speed of the machine and the deep wisdom of the human expert.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. So what are the key takeaways for leaders who are looking to seriously accelerate their R&D?
Well, they really fall into those three pillars we've just defined. First, you have to streamline operations with those executive partnerships and powerful multimodal AI. Second, demand fit-for-purpose data, supported by validated digital biomarkers. And finally, differentiate with quantum-informed discovery and strategic human-AI teaming. The goal, remember, is augmentation, not just automation.
And this really leads to a final crucial insight, the ultimate competitive advantage. It isn't just going to come from having the fastest machine, it's going to come from designing the smartest collaboration, from the teams that truly master the art of working with AI to achieve what neither could ever do alone.